registering clinical trials in a central database, will it make trials better? I mean, not per se. I mean, it really contributes nothing to the outcome of the experiment. What it does is to allow, what it does is to complicate the possibility of cheating. So once you have registered your trial at the beginning, I mean, you can't pretend later on that you have not obtained the results you did, because it's all there and someone else can check it out for you. So it's a sort of, I mean, the sort of norms I'm interested in are norms for the community to keep under normal operations. And then eventually we might get at the problem of, which is a different one, of how do these norms contribute to truth? I mean, there are some norms that are more truth conducive than others, and that's, I'd content a different epistemic debate.
I was wondering whether you had an argument against a different possible interpretation of why, your main contention was that there is a contractarian story to be told about the fact, to explain, to account for the fact that the Debiasing procedures are accepted by everybody. And there is, of course, another story which I believe strikes me as much more plausible in first impression, and is some kind of utilitarian or consequentialist story about that. So why do patients accept to be enrolled in double-blind clinical trials? Because they are told some kind of methodological story according to which, while it functions, it tracks truth best than any other methodological trial. So you have to accept the double blind and accept that for 6 or 10 months you will not be knowing what is the drug you're taking, but this is needed because otherwise we don't get the results, and this is the very best way we can have to get the results. And so also for the physicians, we accept that because it has the best consequences possible. I believe the patients care nothing about the fairness of the procedure; they care about the results,
their own result, actually.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely so. And there is a sort of normative output of what I'm saying here, and you spotted it correctly. So basically, patients. There are surveys that show that patients enroll in clinical trials mostly because it's their only way to access an experimental treatment. So they don't care about the control arm. What they do want is the new drug, and they want it not for the advancement of science, but for their own private interest. So otherwise, they wouldn't bother. So there is this debate about, so why is it legitimate to impose these methodological constraints on them? So why shall we impose on them the burden of randomization, the burden of placebo, the burden of some other sort of blinding? I mean, is this really necessary? And the usual argument is, well, it shouldn't be necessary for causal research. I mean, we would be able to get the same outcome with a different method, and therefore, from a methodological standpoint, it is bad to enforce randomization or blinding on patients. They would be aligned. But my own contribution here takes a different stance. So I differentiate, and this is a distinction from Teddy Seidenfeld and J. Cadane, experiments to learn and experiments to prove. So in experiments to learn, you're free to choose whatever methodology suits your learning problem. And you do this just to find out whether a drug works better or worse with these patients. This is something that you conduct for your own interest alone as a researcher. You do this for learning. But clinical trials are usually experiments to prove. Proof in the sense that there is an audience that in principle do not believe you. So does not believe you. So if your audience doesn't believe you, what can you do to convince them? I mean, how can you prove to this audience that you're not cheating in getting the outcome you want? And this is where debiasing procedures play a role, because they strengthen, I mean, the proof you're providing. I mean, I am obtaining this result and I'm not cheating. So why is it legitimate to impose the burden of these debiasing methods on patients in our experiments to prove? Well, because we want pharmaceutical regulation. I mean, the reason to conduct clinical trials is mostly that we want a gatekeeper in the pharmaceutical market deciding which drugs are safe and efficient and which aren't. And it is because consumers want this gatekeeper to operate that we enforce on patients these methods. Sorry, we impose on patients these methods. Not for their own benefit, but because there is a consumer interest, a public interest in having a regulatory gatekeeper deciding on which treatments are good or bad. And in my view, this is something that in the bioethic discussion on clinical trials is totally lost. So, I mean, the entire clinical trial industry was created by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the American regulatory agency. So, I mean, we should wonder why the FDA or any other regulatory agency should conduct tests with these debiasing methods. And Francesco wants to take issue with this.
No, I don't want to take issues. I was just thinking about the consequences of what you're saying. I mean, it seems to me that one consequence is that this kind of debiasing procedures can only exist, or at least on a large scale, can only exist first in a democratic society, secondly in a society where taxpayers play a very important role in the funding of science. Because if you have just one scientist and one patient, the patient just wants to get any drug, and the scientist is just interested in giving the patient whatever he's got at the moment. And the patient is paying for the drug that he's getting. I mean, what's wrong with that?
That's a bilateral
just
agreement.
let them do what is in their interest. Their interests are aligned, there's no problem. So you need to have a conflict of interest for these procedures to make sense. And in this case, you need basically the taxpayer who's saying, no, I don't want to pay for this bogus treatment to be given to this poor guy. What I want is that the efforts of the research community are invested in a direction that in the long term will produce knowledge that may be useful for me and for my children. I mean, that's why, there's a very big case now, the stamina case.
Yeah, I've followed it, yeah.
But there are cases like this routinely in every country, like the MMR case in the UK and so forth. So, but if you don't have public funding and if you don't have democratic decisions, then the whole thing will probably not exist, right?
Thanks for that, because that's that's absolutely correct. So basically the point is we are living in a sort of paternalist world in which a pharmaceutical agency is protecting the consumers for their own good. Because consumers in principle can't tell whether a drug works or not. So in order to protect consumers, someone else must intervene and provide an objective test. But we could imagine a libertarian world in which things would work out in a totally different manner, and this has been argued for explicitly. So there is an old controversy in medicine between pharmacologists, the guy who invented the clinical trials, and epidemiologists, the guy who conducts surveys on what the consequences are of what happens when you introduce a drug in a given market. So epidemiologists contend that they would be just as good as the trialists in finding out the truth about a drug, only with one promise: that people are willing to suffer a number of adverse effects. So the way to conduct pharmaceutical regulation in this libertarian world would be as follows. So drugs will be administered by a physician, just as Francesco said, in a sort of bilateral agreement. So I want an experimental drug. I'm giving you this experimental drug, and we signed a contract in which the responsibility is distributed. So you won't sue me, and I will give you this drug. If there is an adverse effect, then the physician will report it to a central authority, and an epidemiologist would analyze it there. And if there is statistical evidence that the adverse effects are serious enough, then the experimental drug will be withdrawn from the market. So this is a regulatory system that would work if patients are willing to accept the cost of adverse effects. So if they are willing to bear a few deaths, I mean, a few, I don't know, malformations, or I mean, whatever the treatment might do. So the current system is delaying the introduction of drugs in order to favor future patients. But we are sacrificing the lives of patients who might benefit from those therapies, but can't access them because they are experimental. I mean, those lives are sacrificed for the lives of future consumers. I mean, these libertarians, I mean, argue that if we are willing to give current patients a chance, a fair chance, I mean, they should bear the risks of experimental drugs and benefit from them if they are willing to pay the consequences as well. So does this capture what you're saying? You know?
I think that, who's paying for the research is also very important.
And who's paying for this? Because of course, I mean, you pay for your drug. I mean, you want an experimental drug, you pay for that. I mean, it's at your own expenses. It's not the public health system that is going to invest in that.
But then the system wouldn't work because we're all biased and we all think that we're going to be healthy. We don't want to think that in the future we're going to be sick. So public research will be underfunded. Sorry.
No, that's it. No, but that's precisely it. I mean, in a way, I mean, the system is protecting us from ourselves. Okay. Have I bored you long enough?
I just had a little piece of advice, if I can be of any help, regarding your first
Absolutely.
point, regarding the incentive to cheat and the conflict of interest. I don't know if you came across about the last book by Dan Ireland, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. I think it can add something to that point. There are a lot of experiments on the way we are automatic. We cheat automatically in specific contexts.
The fudge factor.
Okay, exactly. You might find some context to be useful to apply on the very first point, and you are always in the cognitive frame, so it seems to work fine.
Absolutely welcome.
Okay. Ragazzi,
Well, thanks so much for your patience.
thank you very much, David.
Thanks to you. Okay. So.